Alright, welcome Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with a McGonagall that looks more like a Weasley. Keith, what's up, buddy?
Dylan, when I look in the mirror of Erised, I see us recording our 100th episode. We're here, D-Man. We made it. Harry Potter, episode 100.
Interesting. That's what you'd see in the mirror. I think that might come up in listener mail. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing long-awaited Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. If you prefer the Philosopher's Stone, I will accept it. And if you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or send us an owl on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can list us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. So please download, give us a 5-star review, even if you hate it. If nothing else, give us a follow on social channels, please and thank you. Keith, you alluded to it, but first and foremost, I'd like to congratulate us on our 100th episode of the Buddy Book Club. It's probably over 150 hours of content, of which 25% hit the cutting room floor, so we wouldn't be canceled, which I appreciate you doing that. And, you know, this whole enterprise came about because you were part of a book club. Found it, I'm not going to speak for you, but found it maybe too stuffy and the books too boring. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was all like true stories, and anytime I would bring up some jokey stuff, they would all look at me and roll their eyes. You're not taking this serious? I'm like, what are we doing here? This is supposed to be fun.
So you came to me to see if I'd want to do a book club in podcast form, and at the beginning, you didn't even want to be in front of a hot mic. You just wanted to sit in the back and produce it, and have me and some random guy you met in a back alley as my co-host.
Yeah, that's lo and behold, no one wanted to do it, so here I am.
Look at all the millions they gave up. What idiots. They're like the Pete Best of this thing. Look at you now. The podcast wouldn't have lasted 10 episodes without you, so, you know, I just want to thank you. 75 points. For you, Keith, 75.
Well, you're the 9 3/4 engine that drives this whole thing. So I'm going to give you 150 points for catching the snitch and driving this thing. But anyways, let's stop sucking our own beads here.
So if this is the first time you're joining us, you picked a good time to do so, because in celebration of our 100th episode, we're taking a page out of Peeves' book, grabbing the wizarded world by its conch, and doing all the episodes on Harry Potter. We get 7 Harry Potter books and then the feature films that came after them. So strap into the Hogwarts Express, because here we go. Keith, stock up, stock down. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. What do you got?
Establishing lines that shall not be crossed. Stock up.
Oh.
I'm not one to get very offended by many things. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a thing I like to live by. However, there are certain circumstances that you kind of really need to put your foot down, draw a line in the sand, where you can't allow someone to continue to slander or insult or hurt your good reputation. Yeah, I think we all can agree with that, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why I love Hagrid, because he is someone that will do this. Was it too far when the Dursleys physically and mentally tortured Harry for 11 years? No, that's not too far. Was it too far when the Dursleys said to Harry in front of Hagrid and right to Harry's face that it was better off that his parents died? No, that wasn't too far. But what is too far, Dylan?
Mm-hmm. What is?
Don't you ever call Dumbledore a fool. Do not do that, because he'll throw you through a fucking wall if you do that, okay? Because that's what he did. Watch the Dursleys literally say your parents were worthless and they deserve to die, and he's like, hey, I'm going to give you a warning on that one. But then they're like, yeah, that Dumbledore guy, that old guy, that fool. And he's like, what the fuck did you just say? Knocking him into next Tuesday. So stock up of drawing that line and defending someone's honor, because that's important.
Yeah, I'll respect it. He attempted to turn Dudley into a pig, but only gave him a tail, which I enjoyed thoroughly. It'd be interesting when he went to the doctor's office. Like, when I think about books, I like to think that they're actually real. And he went to the doctor's office and he had a pig's tail. It's like, how the doctor's like, what? He's probably had this his whole life. How are we just addressing this now? But my first stock up is nostalgia. So I'm talking big picture here. Keith, do you have a first memory of getting swept away by the world that J.K. Rowling created?
Well, first of all, am I going to do all unserious ones and you're going to be
no.
This book's great,
this was the only one. Honestly, it was the first thing I wrote down, because I read the book in paperback form, which is the same one I picked up when I was 12 years old. And the second I started reading, you know, I open up to The Boy Who Lived, and I'm getting it now, like some goosebumps going on, you know, and it transported me back. So I just wrote the first thing I wrote down was nostalgia. So the rest of them will be more on pace, but I just needed to know.
I was probably the original hipster in like 6th or 7th grade when this book was super popular. I was like, I'm not reading that. I'm too cool for that. I remember sitting down and being like, whatever, I'll read it. And I got to the part where they got on that train. From then on out, that was hooked. I wasn't turning back. The first half of this book, which it is a lot longer than I remember getting into the actual Hogwarts.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. I thought you were going to say it's a lot longer than you remember.
No. Like the first half is a very Matilda-esque, very Roald Dahl-esque. The tail thing was Roald.
Like James and the Giant Peachy or something like that.
But once they actually get to Hogwarts and becomes the school, you're taken away. You're in a different world. It's amazing.
We really don't get to Hogwarts until like page 100. I'm looking at the book, which is pretty crazy considering it's looking now 300-page book. So, I appreciate the setup. Came out in 98 in the US, I think 97 in the UK. My first memory around just Harry Potter in general was I just have this brief memory in 6th grade of people talking about it. So that would be 1999. I remember being a thing, people talking about it. I don't think I had read it at that time. And I don't really have any specific memories around reading books 1 through 3. So I was definitely a little late to the party as well, and potentially a little too cool for school around it. I did see my stepsister at the time reading it. I do remember that, and she was obsessed, like wouldn't put it down. And I was like, all right, I got to figure out what this is all about. So got my own copy. And it's funny because my memories around reading Harry Potter is my mom started going to Costco around this time, like got her Costco membership, and would get me the Kraft mac and cheese, the microwavable ones. You remember like the little bowls? Mm-hmm. And as I'm
Easy Mac. Come on.
Yeah,
kid,
Easy Mac. That's what it's called.
Come on. I'm still eating those. I mean, what?
As I'm reading this, because I used to just crush Easy Mac out of the microwave and read Harry Potter. And as I was reading this book, I noticed like so many Easy Mac stains on the pages, which is hilarious. I think The Goblet of Fire was definitely the first one I read. My mom's a flight attendant, or was. She's retired now. She's a flight attendant and would bring me back the UK copies. So when they came out, she would buy me the UK version. So that was pretty sweet. So I have a very fond memories of just crushing Goblet of Fire over like 2, maybe 3 days, and then being so sad that I read it so fast. So, Harry Potter books are just one of those special things that transports you back into a time, place, state of mind. And for me, and I assume many others, like it brings us great feelings of joy, joy around discovering something so wonderful for the first time and then being able to share that experience with others. So I just love it. I love it. Nostalgia, stock up. Keith, what next do you got?
Wow, that was a good stock up. It was a little bit more serious than mine. Next one is return addresses, stock up. Didn't think I'd have to be stocking up in return addresses, but these are pretty common in the Muggle world. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they could have saved a lot of problems in this book here. I mean, first, Harry gets a letter from Hogwarts, no return address on it, and he's like, who's sending me a letter? Just throw a return address on there. Maybe like a seal of approval. Then you could be like, oh, the Hogwarts School of Wizardry.
Witchcraft and Wizardry,
right. Yeah. Now we're kind of like, okay, now I know there's something's going on here. What is that? You can start asking questions. But instead, he takes like 2 weeks to actually get a letter. But most importantly, Dumbledore, who is supposed to be at the school, that's his job, is to protect the kids. He's hiding something in the school. He knows someone's trying to get. Mm-hmm. And someone sends a mysterious letter from the Ministry of Magic and is like, yeah, come out to the Ministry of Magic. No return address, right? Yeah. So if he actually had some, and I feel like the owls should also tell them where it's coming from. Seems like that would be an important thing, right?
I feel like we have a ton to break down, and I don't want to waste too much time around the Dumbledore letter because it is somewhat like a JFK assassination thing as to it's Dumbledore. He would know who is sending him this letter. If it was Fudge, let's say, I think it's Fudge is the Minister of Magic at this point. I don't remember. We're not supposed to know this.
I mean, the dude's a grand sorcerer. I mean, what are we doing? He's a chief warlock. He would be able
to know who's sending this to him, and he would recognize the letter. It's like Quirrell's handwriting. Come to Ministry. We have things to discuss. He's like, okay, I gotta go. Yeah, and then especially, like, he's Dumbledore. He knows the reason he's at Hogwarts is to protect... Well, I mean, he's there for lots of reasons, but one of them is that it's safe under him. The Sorcerer's Stone is safe under his nose. So, but I will kick back on the return address aspect, because if there was a return address on Harry's Nimbus 2000, McGonagall could have gotten in a little something, because she's trying to get that thing to him under the radar. So...
Wait, what?
McGonagall, she sent him the Nimbus 2000.
Sorry, I thought my mind went a little dirty there because you were like, she's trying to get a little of that broomstick handle, if you know what I'm saying. I'm like, what?
Jesus Christ! You're
Oh,
cutting
you said
out
it. You
for
said a little
sure.
something, something. I don't know what was the reference there.
Well, something. Meaning she's placing some bets on the Gryffindors. Let's just say,
Oh, okay. I guess.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to know that from that?
You didn't read into. Well, just wait for my house cup. You'll get it. My next talk up is brick and mortar shopping. Out here in the Muggle world, it's all online shopping, mostly through Amazon. You buy something, likely of poor quality, probably don't like it, too lazy to return it, it becomes landfill. The Wizards, though, they got this good thing going with Diagon Alley. Look at Ollivander. He's a local small businessman. He takes pride in his work. He's an expert at his craft, not to mention a great salesman. I don't think there are many witches or wizards that leave that shop without completing a sale. He's probably got a 100% hit rate, right?
He's got a monopoly in the market, though, to be fair, right? Like, everyone needs a wand.
Yeah, I guess. But he's got a monopoly in the market because he's so good at his job and he's pushed out the competition. Like, there's only one other, and this is later on, they talk about another wand maker. It's more of a push on our society. Like, what has happened in our society? You remember going shoe shopping as a kid? There was some friendly guy, usually a guy, who likes feet, who would sit you down,
Right,
strap on the Brannick device to get you your exact size, and then work with you for 15 minutes. It was just you and him until you found the perfect shoe. He tells you to walk around in it, maybe a quick stutter step, and
You gotta do a couple. You gotta run to see how fast you are.
get a couple
That's the
quick
first
sprints
thing.
in there. Make sure you're sturdy out on the playground. What happened to that? Nowadays, we're just buying everything online. So the whole Diagon Alley experience, I kid, but at the same time, I am a little serious, and that the whole Diagon Alley hands-on experience, I enjoyed thoroughly, and it reminded me of almost like a mall when you're a kid, but a mall with like wizard stuff going on. It was the first time in the book, and you see it through Harry's eyes. So it's really the first time in the book that you're just immersed in the wizarding world. And you feel like Harry, where you want to just like look everywhere. Like your eyes are just flying from one thing to the other. Because you can only imagine how crazy and cool it would be. And I remember at the time when the movie was coming out, that's one of the things I was most excited for. It was like seeing Hogwarts and Diagon Alley. Because it was like, Diagon Alley is going to be freaking great.
I think too, because now we're adults, we're definitely jaded because you're not really excited about anything anymore, right? Everything you want is you can't buy at a store. Whereas like I remember when I was younger, I just thought being an adult would be so awesome because I could go to the store and buy gum whenever I wanted because my parents would let me have gum, and I was just like, man, that's gonna be so amazing when I can drive and get gum. And now I just take that for granted. So it's definitely different through a kid's eyes, which I wish we had that still.
It's funny because when I was a kid, I would be like, oh, I just want to buy all the Nintendo 64 games. But my mom, I think I had to read like 2 books or something, and she would buy me a Nintendo 64
That's a pretty good deal.
game. Yeah, but maybe it was more. I don't remember, but it was a lot of books, and I read at the time, so it was like, oh, that's pretty fair. But at the same time, I was like, I just want to be able to buy all of them myself. And then now I'm an adult and I buy no video games, but I read lots of books. So what the hell happened to me?
Well, I do the opposite. Is I want that feeling, so I buy a lot of video games and I just don't play them. I just it's like I can buy this now, and I buy it and I play it for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, I just wanted to be able to do that, fulfill that dream.
What else do you have for stock up?
Stock up titles. I mean, we've done this a bunch, but I already referenced it a little bit. Professor Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, Headmaster of Hogwarts, Order of the Merlin, First Class, Supreme Mugwump, Chief Warlock, Grand Sorcerer. The first thing I love most about that is that he threw Brian in there as a middle name. I'd be great if he was just like, I'm Professor Dumbledore, but you can call me Brian. Like, that's what he actually went by.
Yeah, go by Brian by short.
I also thought Mugwump was a funny word, but it's a real word. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's, I think we're both Mugwumps.
What is it?
Person who remains aloof or independent, especially from party politics. I'm a Mugwump.
Yeah, that sounds right for me.
Yeah, but then all the other titles are really just titles that are given to him for being a good wizard. When I looked them up, I was like, oh, I thought there'd be some cool ones, like, a warlock is just like, it's a council of people and they voted him the best. And I was like,
but he's the chief.
Well,
yeah,
that's
fair.
I'm like, all right, but either way, the title's great. I know she outlined this, and we'll probably get to this later, but she outlined like all 7 stories and all this stuff in detail. But I'm wondering if she actually outlined all these names for him. Like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a council for this, and this is important because of this. But if not, great, funny names either way.
I think she probably just came up with them. They're fun and playful, and that's one of the things I love about the book in general is it's such a great story, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't impress upon itself. It's like, I'm going to have this fun little thing. I'm going to name people Longbottom, and then I'm going to move on. You know?
Yeah.
We're not going to, we're not like Malfoy's not going to sit there the whole time and just make fun of the fact that Neville's last name is Longbottom. He's going to go for way more serious stuff. So, you know, I appreciate that. You like read something, it's kind of fun and fanciful, and then you move on and there's something else to go with some story in there. So my next stock up is The Unbreakable Bond of Shared Experiences. Stock up.
Go on.
So on the side, I'm listening to Masters of the Air, which is the book that inspired the TV show of the same name. And it follows bomber crews during World War II. And after landing back in England, after a particularly harrowing bombing run over Germany, we got this quote from the book, and I quote, "There was a sudden relief from fear and strain, but deeper than that was the powerful affinity with every other man on the plane and the plane itself. The swearing and the violence in the sky had only brought 10 men closer together in 8 hours than 8 years might have in any other more normal world. Such being the inevitable bond between men who have suffered fear together and fought against it." So as I was listening to that, very serious World War II book, it just made me think of Harry Potter, specifically.
Right, of course. Yep, makes sense.
Specifically, the relationship between Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And after rereading this book, I can't tell you the last time I read Sorcerer's Stone. It was a very long time ago. Granted, I have read this book maybe 10 times. I honestly have no idea. As I was listening to that, I was like, oh my God, this is that relationship. And when rereading this book, I had forgotten how much of a tough hang Hermione was at the beginning of the book. The whole beginning, she's like, when Ron's trying to turn Scabbers yellow or whatever the case is, she's like, "Are you sure that's a spell? It's not a very good one, is it? I've tried a few simple spells for practice and it's all worked for me." It's like, okay, cool, chill, relax. And then she's talking about the book. She's like, "Oh, I've learned all of our courses by heart." Of course. You know, of course, like, duh, everyone has. "Oh, I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" It's like, what? Chill out. Like, give us a break. We're going to school. We're having a good time. We're eating some chocolate frogs here and some Bernie and Bott's every flavor of beans. Like, why don't you just relax? And then on top of that, she's telling, like, "Oh, we're almost at the station. Like, you guys should get dressed." It's like, you're not my mom. I can do my own thing. And she's always quoting her source material. She's like, "Oh, the ceiling of the Great Hall is bewitched to look like the sky outside." I got that from Hogwarts History. It's like, chill, Hermione. I believe you. I don't expect you're just making up these ideas about bewitching the ceilings. You don't need to quote your sources. What I do need is a coffee table version of Hogwarts History, though. I'm surprised they haven't come out with that. So she comes off, and she is a know-it-all and a bit bossy, but then the troll thing happens, and that's where the shared experience comes in, because these 3 11-year-olds fight off a giant troll, a mountain troll that is in the castle, and after that, it's just they're friends forever. It's just that one shared harrowing experience. They suffered fear together and fought against it, and that is what created this bond. I mean, a bond like that is only going to grow throughout this series as they face more trials and tribulations, but I thought it was a really fun way of bringing this group together, because as I'm reading it, I'm like, how did they become friends? Because Hermione seems like not someone they want to chill with, and I don't know, I just thought the troll incident was great. And then obviously afterwards, Hermione kind of tones it down a little bit, and then, you know, not like she's toning it down for them, she just kind of realizes that this is a friendship and is willing to bend the rules a little bit more than she did before. So I appreciated it.
I feel like a lot of these coming of age stories too, there's always some sort of physical trauma or you know, anguish or something that occurs, and that's how they become friends. I feel like that's a very common route. But hey, yeah, I liked it also. I will defend Hermione a little bit, though, and this is what always bothered me, is if I have to study for math isn't magic. It doesn't do anything for me. Like, it's great that I know how to do these things, but ultimately, it doesn't really do anything unless maybe I went into the math field. If someone took me out of my regular life and said, "Oh, I'm going to teach you all these stuff that you never thought was possible, and now you have it at your hands," I would be studying like you read about. I would be Hermione. I'd be quoting things. I'd be, yeah, you didn't read that? Like, what are you doing? They're like, oh yeah, and if you fail your first year, your owls or OWLs, you're getting kicked out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm studying for 20 hours a day then. Like, I'm not getting kicked out. I'm not going back to the real world of being a muggle and knowing all these things and then no longer being able to utilize them or see them anymore. So I'm 100% on her side. Them being like, whatever, let's take a break. And I'm like, bro, do you understand the consequences if we don't pass here? That's not like an option. I'm studying harder than anyone. So I'm on her side there.
That's a really good point. That's a good way of looking at it because, yeah, I agree. If someone gave me, like said right now, like, you're a wizard, here's all these cool things you can do with this piece of wood in your hand, I'd be like, well, I already know how to do some cool things with wood. And they're like, no, not that. You can start doing magical tricks. I was like, oh, cool. And yeah, I would be the same way. I'd be studying nonstop. I'd just be learning. Like, it'd just be all those books. I would read them back to front just because it's so interesting. So, yeah, okay. Team Hermione, stock up. What up? Stock down. What do you got?
Stock down, being an athlete. This may be a larger questions about wizards in general, but are they actually good athletes? I mean, you got to think of, like, it's a small pool of the population are actually wizard and witches, right? Their whole life, they're really just relying on magic, their wand. They're not lifting heavy objects ever. They're not running, really, distances.
Yeah, they use the brain muscle.
Main sport is essentially horseback riding, right? They're not really... They're riding on something. They're not necessarily, like, yeah, they have to be, like, agile and, maybe dexterous.
Grip that broom, too,
Right, but...
You got to be doing that Kegels.
You don't really need to be an athlete at all. And so a big question of mine... Well, it came up immediately. Why did Voldemort he who must not be named, need to cast a killing spell on Harry Potter? He's a little baby.
Should like just bash his head in?
Yeah, but he's such a huge baby back bitch. He probably couldn't even like lift it up. He's so soft. He's like this weak, feeble arms. He could barely lift the baby. He didn't know how to kill it. Yeah. So he's weak. And he doesn't have that dog in him where he'd kill a baby. He doesn't want to get the blood in his hands. So
yeah, he's got no Spartan in him. He can't just toss the baby off a cliff.
Yeah, so ultimately he's really not that good of a bad guy. He's pretty soft. So stock down being an athlete.
It's funny because I thought you were going more of like the Quidditch approach, but you went with like Voldemort doesn't have the athletic ability to murder a baby, which is quite an interesting take.
Have you thought about that? Why did he need to do a spell? He's relying so much on spells. He doesn't realize that he could just drop the baby in a river or something,
Yeah, it's like it's another Scott Evil situation. Like, exactly. You don't need to do this spell. We'll just grab this baby and we'll toss it out the window.
Yeah.
My first talk down is the Great House's PR teams, particularly Hufflepuff and Slytherin. Mm-hmm. So Hermione might not know a lot about the wizard world, but she knows one thing. She knows she wants to be in Gryffindor, or at least Ravenclaw. Mm-hmm. Her words. And she's learning this from just reading books. So imagine what's going on in these books that they're telling you, like, hey, be in Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. And they say, oh, I don't want to be in Slytherin because Voldemort was in Slytherin. So just because Voldemort was in Slytherin, it's now the pariah of the great houses? What? Have all the other houses only produced saints? Very unlikely. I'm sure there are shitty wizards all over the place. I mean, hell, Gilderoy Lockhart was a Ravenclaw, and we're going to learn about him in book 2. People are like, oh, Ravenclaw would be pretty cool. This guy's a total asshole. And
spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler alert. If this is your first time reading Harry Potter, I'm sorry. You should probably read the next one too. And then the next 6 or 7, however many there are.
And then reread them again.
And then reread them again. Just the idea that being in Slytherin just means you're immediately evil is really unfortunate. And then we even talked about the Sorting Hat song. He says, or perhaps in Slytherin you make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. Well, pardon me, Sorting Hat? The fuck is that? Slander. Defamation of character. The rest of them are like, oh, in Gryffindor you'll be brave and true. In Hufflepuff you'll be nice to your friends.
Hufflepuff, you're just there. You're a step above Squib. Hufflepuff is what they're saying.
It's like in Ravenclaw, you're a genius. In Gryffindor, you're very brave and you're good to your friends. In Hufflepuff, like, you're cool. Yeah, you're cool.
You're in a house.
Yeah, you made it. I was just a little upset with the way that we got branding for Hufflepuff and
Well, this happens in the real world, though. I think, like, Gryffindor is like the Harvard, right? I think Hufflepuff is like a state school. I went to a state school, so I can say that. And then you got Ravenclaws for like a Yale, and then I think you're looking at like a
Slytherin's like a JUCO or like
no, I think Slytherin's like one of those super religious schools, something like that.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Apologies to all the religious folk out there.
And I'm saying this completely as a what was the term a mugwump. So I don't. Yeah, I'm a mugwump on this. So don't take me seriously. Yeah, last one. Stock down for me. Saying hand up. Coming into this reread, I was big Team Hagrid, big Team Dumbledore.
Oh, you're going to explain what hand up means?
Oh, yeah. Hand up, sorry, just means like, hey, my fault, my bad, hand up. Mm-hmm. Coming to this book, I remember them favorably, or maybe in the later books they're a little bit better, but the whole dragon fiasco, where
Norbert?
One, Hagrid can't handle his alcohol, reveals all of his secrets constantly to these 11-year-olds and in the bar, somehow ends up with the dragon, doesn't take responsibility for it at all. And then he takes these 3 11-year-olds, he's like, yeah, you guys handle this for me. So they have to go reach out, find people that can take it. Luckily, Ron's brother is well-equipped to do this. Get them, and then in the middle of the night, they have to like secretly go off and get rid of the dragon. They get caught. Mm-hmm. They go to detention. Who's doing the detention? Hagrid himself, this very person. And not one single mention of it. Not one, like, hey, by the way, you guys really did me a solid, or, hey, by the way, I realize you guys are doing detention and I'm hosting it, and it's kind of ridiculous considering I should be the one that's fired. Not even a hand up, nothing. He's just like, yeah, you guys deserve this. Let's now go out. It's like he completely forgot that he's the one that's caused all this. So, stock down on saying hand up. I guess you can just go on living life and everyone else is to blame for everything. Yeah, didn't care for it. Also, they just go up to like the haunted forest and he's like, we'll split up. What? Bro, are you serious? This forest is supposed to be super dangerous, no?
The group, because you said they split up in groups, the group is Malfoy, Neville, and Fang. Like, he's not even
he's like,
person.
Fang's useless. That's like, wait, what? So,
yeah. You didn't quite elaborate on why Dumbledore gets the... You don't respect Dumbledore.
He has all these titles. He's also this genius wizard, but at the same time, nothing he does in the book other than turning himself invisible and sneaking up on Harry is really that great. He hires Hagrid, who's going buck wild here, literally, and he leaves in the most important time. He doesn't sniff out the fact that Voldemort is literally teaching classes. He's in the school the whole time. I don't know how he doesn't sniff that out. He just doesn't. He seems like not all with it.
Okay. Interesting. Well, since we're out here dragging Dumbledore's name through the mud, I'm going to continue on that with stock down of Dumbledore's hiring practices. Okay, so yeah, yes, we've said Dumbledore may be the best wizard in all of the world, but he's just not a good administrator. How does Professor Binns still have a job? He's not a good teacher. He just drolls on, doesn't inspire his students to learn. I get it. He died on the job. But doing so doesn't just give you tenure to continue into the afterlife. You have to continue to show that you're being a good teacher. Or at least that's my thought. I don't know exactly if that's
You're talking about the guy that's a ghost, right?
Yeah. Professor Binns, okay. The history of magic teacher.
I think that is a pretty rare pull there. You're like, yeah, everyone knows him.
Well, I'm mostly upset he's not in, and we'll get into this when we do the movies, but he's not in any of the movies and whatnot. Granted, he has like one moment, and I think they give it to frickin' Flitwick. But... I mean, most importantly, how the hell does Quirrell get hired? What are his qualifications to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher? I need to see this guy's CV. He's scared of his own shadow. We get no insight in the book into his classroom lessons, which is not only unfortunate because Defense Against the Dark Arts sounds like the class that I want to be sitting in on and listening to, but I think we also don't see it because he's incompetent. We know that he has experience with trolls, but what else you got? Like, just because you can defeat a troll doesn't mean you should be a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, right?
I think that's a primary qualification. I also think that he kind of fit the... he interviewed and he had the stutter, and they're like, well, we can't turn this guy down now because he's a stutter. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. That's not a qualification to be a good teacher.
I think you feel bad sometimes. If I interview, they're like, yeah, this guy's pathetic, but we got to hire someone. So
yeah,
he seems like a good dude. That's same thing.
Yeah, you're just sweating out of nervousness and like, oh, he's got a sweat gland issue. We should really hire him. I feel terrible for him. Yeah, so just Dumbledore as an administrator, you know, his job is to keep these students safe and make sure they're learning. And I'm really not sure he does either of those things. Which brings me to my... Actually, I'm going to save this one for last because I have two more. Stock down, my next stock down, the sorting process. It just seems like a pretty stressful process for an 11-year-old to go through. You've never been to Hogwarts before. It doesn't seem like you know much about Hogwarts. And all of a sudden, you're marched up in front of the whole school. Some lice-infested hat gets dropped on your head, and whatever that hat decides will be your fate for the next 7 years. You know, your experiences over that time will be drastically different based on this very moment, based on this decision that this hat makes. And, you know, you might have a legacy situation or be keen for a certain house, maybe a best friend from home that you like, you know, you'd like to be in the same house with is in your class.
I disagree. This is like college. You don't get to choose like where you start out in a dorm, you know, or maybe you did, but you're supposed to just kind of get random. That's kind of the fun of it. And it's better than college. They're like putting you in this hat knows all. It knows best where you fit in. So I like it.
Okay.
I also think that it's like an initiation process, but a lot of times initiation's scary or something you have to do something and you might embarrass yourself. There's no embarrassment. There's nothing that bad happened. And then everyone celebrates you when you get initiated. So essentially you get picked a house and they all celebrate and you have a big feast. It's a pretty good, I think everyone looks back on that being pretty fond memory for them.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot, and I don't care to put a child through that traumatic experience, but you do bring up a good point that I guess at the end, an entire table of students cheers for you. So like,
yeah, there's nothing embarrassing that could happen, really. You put the hat on, they yell a name. They heard your internal monologue. I would think that'd be a little bit pretty bad, but...
How do I explain that due to the unfreezing process, I have no inner monologue? Love it.
He should have played Hagrid. That would have been a good role for him.
Mike Myers? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I do have, I'm going to burn a lingering question here because it pertains to this, but how much influence can one have in the sorting process? Because Harry says, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. And the sorting hat's like, you'd be great in Slytherin, but Harry's like, definitely not. So the sorting hat puts him in Gryffindor. But based on the aforementioned PR process, I feel like lots of kids would be saying no Slytherin or no Hufflepuff. You know, they'd be like, no, I don't want to be in Slytherin or Hufflepuff, which just wouldn't work out because then those houses wouldn't have any people. Or let's just say like Jeffrey Dahmer really wanted to be a Hufflepuff. Yeah. Would the sorting hat allow that? Like, how much pull do you have, or does the sorting hat just kind of take it?
Well, we'll find out when we take our test for next episode.
But you can't just say to the computer, like, hey, computer, I don't want to be in Ravenclaw. Just ask you a bunch of stupid questions, then get your email, and then they send you all these emails about merch you can buy. Do you think, I honestly want your personal opinion, like, do you think you have a lot of pull into what house you're into? Or do you think if it's like a 50-50 and you say no to one, he'll put you in the other?
I think it's weighted because some people, they put the hat on, they immediately yells the name out because it's like, no, this is the only place they can fit. I think it's more of like you're Divergent, like the book where it's not clear, then you have some say in it. It's like, all right, here's the two that you probably fit in. That's where he's like, you could probably be Slytherin, you could probably be Gryffindor. What are you thinking? The hat, I think, can convince you one way or the other. So that's what I would say. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I agree. If the hat's iffy on it, then you can kind of make the call yourself.
Put your 2 cents in.
Yeah. I mean, I think he takes things into consideration. I mean, this is a magical hat that is a pretty big job, and it's been doing it for hundreds of years, so...
Yeah, it has 364 days to come up with a rhyme, so the rhyme was good, but at the same time, you got a year, bud. Like, come on.
Yeah, also, where's the Slytherin PR team being like, hey, don't say this? My last stock down is, and it's a long one, so I apologize, but the idea that Hogwarts is, quote-unquote, the safest place, stock down, you know, they say...
so safe places, stock down, but go on, yeah.
Yeah, safe places, sure.
Yeah.
Specifically Hogwarts. So supposedly our boy Voldy is scared of Dumbledore, thus Hogwarts is safe. And Gringotts might be good enough for all the wealth of the wizarding world and is FDIC insured, but if you really want something safe, keep it at Hogwarts. It's all called Codswallop, you know, because Hogwarts is...
It's all what now?
Codswallop.
Yeah, I know what that means, but our listeners might not. What does that mean?
Bullshit.
Oh, okay.
Hagrid uses it in the book. I liked it. Hogwarts is clearly an unsafe environment for children. I'm going to start with the restricted section, which is an area of the library that is full of books about powerful dark magic. What's it protected with? a rope with a sign. It has the same level of security as a checkout line at Chipotle. This is a magical school. There is magic here. You can do any sort of magical spell to actually restrict the restricted section. Yet it just has a rope.
Man, come on. We all know, Dumbledore alludes to it at the end. He's like, yeah, I could have helped you out, but really I just wanted you to fight for your own. If you're not brave enough to cross this picket line that does, that there's no barrier to entry, then you don't deserve to be back there. If a little rope, that's going to prevent you from sneaking in and learning more, then, you don't deserve it. That's the fact of the matter. So all these things are like slight barriers. If you're too scared to go into the woods by yourself, that's why you'll be an accountant for the Ministry of Magic. You're not going to be... If you're too scared to jump on a broom and fly off when you've never flown before, catch a snitch, then I can't help you. So
Gotcha.
It's all that.
So it's more about life lessons here is what you're saying. Like there are rules that are meant to be broken, and
exactly.
These are one of them. So if you go into the restricted section, let's say, learn about a bunch of dark magic, and then become the Hitler of the wizarding world, Dumbledore's like, hey, sometimes that happens.
Wait, first of all, did I just miss the Hitler drop? What was that? I completely blacked that out.
Well, it's basically like Voldemort, Tom Riddle,
okay,
he's going into the restricted section, doing all this stuff, who knows? And you talked about locked door, which is interesting because, once again, the door to Fluffy is opened with a generic unlocking spell that any first year can be proficient in, and then behind that door is a three-headed monster. So, here the line of defense is, quote unquote, don't go to the third floor, and then a kind of sort of locked door. Any kid could just die because of that. You started talking about detention, but detention involves sending 11-year-olds into a forbidden forest, so named because it's full of dangerous beasts and who knows what, to track down a creature. Like, their job for detention is to track down a creature that's been killing unicorns. Unicorns, by the way, are powerful magical creatures that aren't easy to catch, and this creature's doing it, and these 11-year-olds' job is to track this down.
I think what really would have happened if this wasn't a kid's book is it would have some Red Rising elements to it, where it's like, hey, listen, you're going to go to this school, but 10% of people aren't going to fail. And by fail, I mean they're going to die at school because, it's part of magic training. It's like going to the military. Things happen in training. Sorry, that's what happens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There would be a lot more children to death. And we haven't even mentioned the young witches and wizards with untested wands and new hormones surging through their systems. So,
good point.
Yeah, untested wands.
Extendo. Wait, what?
Engorgio, I think that's what you mean. And then the idea that Hogwarts is safer than Gringotts. Okay, I get that the vault in Gringotts was broken into, but what does Dumbledore do to further protect his good buddy, Nicholas Flamel Stone? He picks up, a handful of deterrents that a couple of first years can get by. Hagrid, obviously, he knows can't keep a secret. Bless him. But, Fluffy is a weakness. If Fluffy has a weakness, then, Hagrid's going to spill the beans. Dumbledore knows that. Sprout's Devil's Snare, they learned it in first year herbology. And a game of Wizard's Chest, and I appreciate Ron's skill and courage, but he's no Grand Master, or maybe Grand Wizard in this case. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Definitely not a Grand Wizard.
To break into somewhere, they sat you down and made you take the SATs without studying. Are you ready for that right now? No. So it's a pretty hard test, I think.
I'm always ready for the SATs.
Yeah? Oh, wow, okay.
But I just think if you're a powerful wizard that's trying to steal the Sorcerer's Stone and has already proven they can break into Gringotts, then, you're talking about a couple of first-year stuff.
Most people aren't this well-rounded, so we're going to make something it's you have to be so well-rounded, and that's why they have 3 people that go through, and that's why they're able to complete it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be, one of them couldn't do it.
Hermione even says that even some of the greatest wizards aren't proficient in logic, which is interesting because this kind of logical game, perhaps, or this logical puzzle is more of a muggle type thing. It's advantageous for them to be muggles because they'd probably more likely be doing that than the wizarding type stuff. All right, we got done with Stock Up, Stock Down. Keith, did you have a favorite scene or favorite chapter, perhaps? I know this is broken up into several chapters that are pretty distinctive, so if it wasn't a particular scene, I'd be okay with that.
we just talked about it, but the ending, I thought, I mean, that's a big scene. I know it's kind of cheating to say that, but that had the perfect mix of everything. You give me a treasure map where you have to go through and solve all these problems, I'm in for it every single time. There's not a scenario, a movie, a book. I mean, Indiana Jones, right? This is what Indiana Jones is. The whole thing is like you got to do all these steps and different things in order to get by and get to the actual end goal. Anytime you have that, especially since it's a whole book, and you're getting all these little tidbits throughout the book that come back and say, oh yeah, I can use this one spell that I learned in this class. It's really tying the whole book together. I thought it was encapsulated the book perfectly. It was such a good, well-rounded ending. And for someone that wasn't that into reading, that ending was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is why you need to read all the stuff at the beginning that's maybe not as fun for you to understand the payoff at the end, right? So it really did make me like reading that, like this one ending. So yeah, I think it's perfection.
Yeah, it was a little quick. Did you think it was a little quick? Like everything kind of happened so fast at the end, I feel like.
When the first time I read it, I remember thinking it wasn't fast. I remember thinking, oh, like you were like strapped in. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, it's much more tense the first time you
45
read it,
pages from through the chapter to the end. So
it's not, yeah, that's pretty long.
Yeah, I guess that's 6 of the book or whatever. For reference here, Joe Rowling said that the Mirror of Erised was one of her favorites out of all the books. So,
oh, interesting.
In that, we get the invisibility cloak, our first real interaction with Dumbledore since chapter 1. We see the wise Dumbledore. He says, it does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Remember that. We see the wise Dumbledore. And then we see the smartass Dumbledore. When Harry asks if he can ask Dumbledore one more question, Dumbledore says, obviously, you've just done so. Dumbledore smiled. You may ask me one more thing, however. So, yeah, you get all the different sides of Dumbledore. Yeah. But my personal, and obviously there's a lot there within that chapter, and I think Joe Rowling lost her mother when she was young, so I could see the Mirror of Erised.
Are you calling her Joe?
Yeah, Joe. That's what she goes by. Joe Rowling.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were on first name basis.
Well, they did JK for the books because they thought that young boys wouldn't like reading books by a woman, so they did JK.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Although
good fun fact. Should have saved that for that.
Yeah, I think her name's like Joanne Rowling, but she goes by Joe, so you could have just done J.O. Rowling and it would have been the same thing. I don't think young boys... Honestly, I don't know. I think that's just some ridiculous publisher thing, but who knows?
Yeah, as a young boy, all you care about is the cover. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, there's a kid on a broom, there's a unicorn.
I would have been in for that.
Castles, I'm in. My personal favorite chapter, though, is the Forbidden Forest. We get a real change of tone in the Forbidden Forest. The book starts to get spooky and mysterious. We get Voldemort. Like, wait, what? Voldemort is like real and a character. There's allusions to a prophecy with the centaurs, and Harry gets
Hobbit vibes for sure in that.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings vibes.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Or maybe The Hobbit. You're saying the book The Hobbit. I got
either
it.
One.
Harry gets his invisibility cloak back, and then boom, we're right into the final act. Like right after that is through the trapdoor. So yeah, Forbidden Forest was for me.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Our potpourri category is what I'm going to call these next ones, or maybe as I like to think of it, the Bernie and Bott's every flavor category. We're going to go through a couple of pick yours. Keith, we'll start off with one we're familiar with to get you warmed up, but pick your character.
Yeah, I gotta be Neville Longbottom for me.
Oh,
I forgot about Neville, especially him standing up to the three of them. He gets picked on all the time. He really defines what Gryffindor is. Stands up to his friends, courage. I teared up a little bit at the end when he got those final last 10 points or whatever it was to take them, and he finally was the hero of the story. Neville's the hero of this story. I liked it a lot.
It takes true courage to stand up to your friends. Anyone can stand up to their enemies.
I teared up. I appreciated that. So give me Neville. What about you?
I was actually, it's funny you say that because I was going to ask you if it got dusty for you at any point during
yeah, for sure.
during this book. And that was it for you?
Yeah, that was it. I also, Hermione not just taking his wand and walking by him would have been, I think, suffice. Instead she's like, I'm going to paralyze this guy for 6 hours and keep him locked up here. It's like she cast like the paralyze spell on him, wherever it was, right?
Yeah. She cast
a little bit much. How about like a disarm?
Totalis on him.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Well, before I pick my character, I got a little teary-eyed. It was really whenever Dumbledore was around. I think right at the end when he gave the points, it was actually Ron when he gave the points to Ron. I don't know why, but I got a little dusty. Let's just say I didn't like cry or anything, but something about just Ron always living in the shadows of his brothers and singled out in a positive way by Dumbledore. And Ron really is the backseat, and we learned so much more about this later on. And so I really respected that. And then also when Dumbledore and Harry have their sit down in Madame Pomfrey's place, whatever, the hospital wing. And there's something that he said to him, and it might have been around when Harry asked, like, why Voldemort tried to kill him. And Dumbledore basically says the first question, because he says he's not going to lie to him. He's like, oh, the first question is one I can't answer. And we just know so much more about it at this point, as people that have read these books so many times, that it just like the weight of everything that Dumbledore is holding on to and how much he loves and cares for Harry just hit me at that one point. So I got a little tear right there as well.
No, I appreciate that.
I mean, I just love Hagrid, honestly. We get a great description of him. I got to read it because we get a great description of him on page 14 for those following along. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild. Long tangles of bushy black hair and a beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast muscular arms, he was holding a bundle of blankets. I don't know why, I loved that description. The idea that she's sitting there deciding to write, like, what are his feet like? And she's like, baby dolphins, of course. Yeah, there's just so much. Obviously, Hagrid has his faults, but he's just a big sap, and he loves those kids so much. So even though he did the whole dragon thing and probably has an issue with alcohol, he should get some help with. But I just love the guy.
Yeah.
We'll move on to, let's pick your magical element in this one. So this is just for these particular books. We'll go through these for the other Harry Potter books. Things might get added or not. So pick your magical element, and wands don't count. I have a list here of things that I read if you need help. Otherwise, I'll give the floor to you.
Well, I went with what I think really solidified the world building for Harry Potter for me is Quidditch, aka Quidditch. I call it Quidditch forever. I don't really care. That's how I read it when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. But to come up with a brand new sport, incorporating it into the universe, it being a small part, just the creativity and imaginativeness to think of that, and then just put it in. And then, like, as a kid growing up too, you're playing sports, doing things like that, and you're like, that could be me. That I would be like playing this sport.
Do you think the sport that she came up with, Quidditch, and I assume the answer is yes, but do you think it's like fully fleshed out? Do you think it was an interesting idea that she came up with? And in terms of the rules, there being the amount of people and the 2 bludgers and the quaffle is getting tossed back and forth, the 3 goalposts, like, is there anything there you would change perhaps?
Well, I think it's definitely hard to imagine until you see it visually, in the movies, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely harder when you're younger to picture that for sure. But at the same time, like, it is a pretty convoluted game that she came up with that it is logical, right? It's like, it's hard to come up with sports. The reason there's only like 3 or 4 sports that are primarily played in the US is because sports aren't easy to, like, pickleball came about, like, when's the last sport you can think of that, like, and pickleball is just, it's like a variation of something that's already been made 100 times, right?
Yeah.
But, like, what's the last sport that's really come in and that's not new? Like, not many, right? It's pretty hard to come up with the idea for a sport, like, or even like a card game or a board game.
And the sport, like, is quote unquote legit in the sense that there are college club teams that play Quidditch. I don't know how it works with the snitch though. I don't know how that part works. Yeah, I love me some Quidditch. I think maybe 150 points might be too much based on the length of the games that we've seen so far. It seems like there's just no way that you don't win unless you catch the snitch. So
I also think there'd be a lot more deaths if there's those what are they, bludgers or whatever, they're coming at you, scheming at you, and you're like 150 feet in the air. Like, wouldn't you do it? I thought there'd be like some trapeze thing on the bottom, the net catches you, but they're like, no, they might just die.
Exactly.
It's like, wait, what?
And can't they do some sort of
like magical
charm?
Force fields?
I
think
like,
so.
Will stop you from falling, but I don't know. We'll find out later.
Yeah.
So as for some magical elements, I had Dumbledore's Put Outer, which is going to come back later on. Sirius Black's motorcycle. Who? Neville's Remembrall. The Mirror of Erised. The Sorcerer's Stone. Wizard Chess. And Party Poppers. Not the kind you're used to, Keith. Different kind. For me, it was the Mirror of Erised, and they have an inscription there, which, if you read it backwards, as if in a mirror, it says, "I show not your face, but your heart's desire." Interesting. A kid could figure that one out on his own. And I just thought it was a very interesting idea. This mirror that shows you what you truly want inside. And Dumbledore says that he sees himself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. Harry doesn't think that's what he says. Do you have any ideas of what Dumbledore might have seen in the Mirror of Erised?
I would say probably a companion or lover. That's what I would go with. I feel like Dumbledore doesn't have a contemporary or peer.
Yeah, you think he sees Grindelwald and maybe his elder one dangling free.
For sure, yes.
Yeah, okay. Got it. No, I think that's probably true.
You?
I think either that or, we learn more about his family and his sister, that passed. So maybe something, he's estranged from his brother at this point. So
you're bringing in a lot of stuff that I don't remember. So you're going outside the box here, kid. Come on. My context is just the first book. I don't know anything else about it.
Well, but, okay, that's fair. Anyone that has that much power and responsibility, deep down inside, they're lonely. It's kind of like the superhero thing. Yeah, and so you're saying it about a lover, and
Heavy wears the crown or whatever.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah, there we go.
So I think it's similar to that, but probably for me, I think maybe more family and trade, but that's just me. I don't know. Okay, let's jump into pick your spell, and an extremely surprising lack of spells in this. I was very surprised after rereading this book how few spells there are.
Yeah.
We really only have 3 or 4. It's the first real spell we hear is Alohomora, the door unlocking spell. When we get the famous Wingardium Leviosa, and then some Locomotor Mortis, which is the leg locking curse, and Petrificus Totalis, the body binding curse. Otherwise, there's no other spells said in this book.
And when you were suggesting the category, I was like, do we get that many? So yeah, I'm glad you summarized it with 4. I went with the Wingardium Leviosa because I'm Team Ron on this. Why are we making these spells so hard to say? What is it? We're doing Latin now? What's going on here? Can we just make it like levitate or levitato? You know, that's why I took Spanish because like half the words are just you add an O to the end. And you know them already. So it is this garbage. We have to like preach here to understand that. So yeah, that was my one. Not because I actually like the spell, but just I agree with him.
Yeah, I feel like Alohomora, a door unlocking spell, it's like, when are you really going to use that in daily life? Your car, you lock your keys in your car. It's like, oh, that one's easy. And maybe your front door, so you don't have to pull the keys out of your pocket. But otherwise, if you're using that, like, you're probably a creep. You shouldn't be using that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with you with the Wingardium Leviosa. Pick things up and fly around. We'll move on to magical creature. We got a few. We got Fluffy, the troll, goblins, dragons, unicorns, centaurs, and a giant squid. If you have a different one, you let me know, but that's your pick.
Yeah, I went with centaurs. I just like someone asks you a question and you just like look up to the sky and say like, oh yeah, Mars is pretty bright tonight though, huh? It's like just not answering any questions. I appreciate that. There's someone running around this forest murdering creatures in here. And he's like, yeah, well, Mars is in retrograde, so what are you going to do? It's like,
Mars is retrograde. Get it together. If you're going to talk astrology, you have to actually speak the language.
I'm a virgin, so I could say, Virgo. Oops. That's my joke every time.
Really?
Every time it gets a chuckle, and then people are like, this guy is a virgin though, right? Still, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, I went with centaurs too. I mean, I want whatever they're smoking. They're deep. And
are they deep? I think they just don't know the answers.
But you did talk about how she outlined, like J.K. Rowling outlines the stories, and it was really, I forgot the stuff in the Forbidden Forest where the centaurs are basically saying that the stars have told them that Voldemort is going to need to kill Harry Potter. And Ferenz says, like, centaurs have been wrong before. The stars have, we've read the stars wrong before. I'm hoping that's the case this time. But he pretty much says that they're like, Voldemort's going to kill him, which is wild. And I totally forgot that. It just seemed like, oh shit, this is something here. And lastly, in the potpourri section, I didn't even tell you about this, but for those that have the original US version, as I have, the illustrations were done by Mary Grand Prix. And I'm a big fan of the cover art, but not so much a big fan of the chapter art. I kind of remembered it as a kid, but didn't love it this time. Partial to Keeper of the Keys, which is basically just a picture of Hagrid in all of his glory. But, and Keith, I wish I had sent this to you, but I don't understand the chapter art around the Sorting Hat. You would imagine the Sorting Hat chapter is the Sorting Hat, but I think it's a picture of the Fat Friar as the chapter art. That is the Sorting Hat. It just seems like a little crazy to me because you have something that's so easy there with this cool patchwork Sorting Hat, or maybe Harry with the Sorting Hat on, but instead they just have the cover art as a picture of the Fat Friar.
I'm not sure the reasoning for that either. I did just see that the original cover sold for $2.6 million at auction. People like it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into some love hates. Keith, what'd you love?
It's one of those books where you're reading it slow on purpose. You didn't want to get through it because you mentioned it, nostalgia. Once you get in the zone, you're just feeling it. I could have easily knocked this out in a day. Wouldn't even thought twice about it. I kept stopping it at times just so I could span it out a little bit longer, and someone on their side of this microphone was slow reading. So
yeah, well, I was doing the same thing. I had to stop because I didn't want it to end. Like I was like, oh, I'm reading way too fast. Like I can't do it.
Nice thing is we have 6 more, which is like, that's what I kept on telling myself. It's like, this isn't over. We got some more stuff coming up. So that's the one thing that got me through it. I also thought it was funny that the first half of the book, like we mentioned, it kind of goes by slow, but it kind of is like a horror story if you think of it from another perspective. He's with these like evil relatives, are locked in a closet. He's hearing voices, snakes are talking to him, things are flying around. It's kind of like and he's having constant like nightmares. I'm like, this could have been a horror story if like you just positioned it slightly different.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting take. I did like, I loved the way the story kicks off. You know, The Boy Who Lived. What a great chapter name. It makes you want to read it. Like if I was the first time I picked this up and I was an editor or whatever the case is, and I saw, one of these people that reads it first time, I was like, oh, The Boy Who Lived. Like, who is this boy? And the thing I love as well is that within there, we don't get thrown into the wizarding world off the bat. It's not just like, oh, here's this crazy world that we've created. We just get Vernon Dursley living his boring life, working 9 to 5, selling drill parts. And then we start getting these curious characters. We get Dumbledore and this Minerva person talking about strange stuff and Voldemort. We don't know anything about these people. We don't know anything about what they're talking about. And we need to know. It's, as a reader, we just need to know. And I think in general, that's one of the best parts of Jo Rowling's writing is she tells the story in such a way that you just need to know what happens next. It's like the most bingeable book possible.
No, I completely agree. And also there's so many little hat tips or like sneak previews. The fact that Professor McGonagall's as a cat, you're like, wait, what's going on? Why is this? What does it mean? It's a cat.
Yeah.
And they never touch on it again this rest of this book. These little small tidbits that you get 2 books from now, will be important, which is like crazy to think that she planned all this out so well.
Yeah, I actually started writing down all the things that are going to be important later in books that are just kind of Easter eggs in here. And I couldn't get to them. Like, I couldn't get to all of them. It was like too hard to write them down because there were so many. It starts off with Sirius Black's motorcycle. And from there, we just keep rolling. What else do you like?
I love the book so much. I'm trying to find stuff that's just more funny. Do you think that Dumbledore heard our take on child abuse from the Matthew McConaughey podcast and was like, yeah, we can't have this guy growing up famous and living a life of luxury when he's young. We need him to have some sort of abuse for the first 10 years of his life. That'll make him a better person. And that's why he stuck him with the Dursleys? Do you think that's what happened?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think he read, even though that book came out way later. Yeah, I think that's the case.
You can see into the future. Come on.
One of the other things I loved was Hogwarts itself. It's just so magical and full of wonder and mystery. What I would give to have free reign in that castle under an invisibility cloak. We're talking doors that are walls pretending to be doors you have to tickle to get in, moving stairs, vanishing steps, stairways that only go corridors that only go one way on Fridays, whatever the case is, other corridors that lead to nowhere. The students have a hard enough time getting to class, but it just seems like such an amazing
and it's
place
endless. It feels like each year it gets bigger and different.
Yeah, I just loved it. I found that I could have just sat there the whole time as they just explained what goes on in Hogwarts.
Have you played the Harry Potter video game? I think you'd really like it.
No, like Legacy, Hogwarts Legacy? Is that what it's called?
Like the gameplay's not like blowing your mind, but they have all the spells, they have Hogwarts, they have Diagon Alley, and you're just walking around like living that as your life. It's pretty awesome. It's Hogwarts Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I might have to check it out. I need to find time to like dive in, because I'm one of those people who once I do dive in, like I dive in fully into something. So
yeah, it's got a good story along with it too. So
I do have some paternity leave coming up in
spoilers.
November. Yeah, so let's see how this baby is, and then maybe it'll just be resting on my lap as I play. My last one was just the Flamel search. It ties into that idea of all these Easter eggs that she does. This Nicholas Flamel search, or the idea that, we have to find this guy. All the pieces are there for the reader to figure out. I just loved it so much because the whole thing is given to us early on the Hogwarts Express with the chocolate frog. They say Nicholas Flamel during his alchemy. So we don't know exactly what that alchemy entails, but we know that Dumbledore's affiliated with Nicholas Flamel because of his alchemy. But we immediately forget it because we're lost on this train with all these crazy candies that we're thinking about.
A lot of stimuli.
Yeah, Hermione bugging people. And all the books they search in the library, even when you're reading it, now I know, as reading this book, who Nicholas Flamel is. But as I'm reading it, it's like great wizards of the 20th century, notable magical names of our time, etc. And there's like 5 books that are all the same. They're like recent wizards. So an astute reader could clearly see that there's a theme with the books they're looking up, which is that they're all recent. So it's like, all right, Nicholas Flamel must not be recent. It's just fun. It's fun to be with them trying to figure this out. Maybe you're able to, but you're still not able to see the final piece Joe Rowling holds on to for the end. So I just love the way she crafts the story, honestly.
Fun fact, which I'll burn now since you brought it up. Only one character in the Harry Potter series is an individual from the Muggle world, aka the real world. Nicholas Flamel, the sorcerer from Sorcerer's Stone, was a French businessman, alchemist, and scribe in the 14th century. So he's a real person.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Created the Sorcerer's Stone and lived forever. That's why he's like 600 or whatever.
That's cool. So every other character is created from her mind except for Nicholas Flamel.
Yeah, according to this fun fact I found.
Yeah, I trust everything I read on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
So
perfect.
It's totally fine. Perfect. What about hate?
Hate's the school turning on Harry. I get them turning on Ron. I get it. But I mean, Harry's got them, 300 points from catching 2 snitches?
That's not house, but you don't get house points.
You get those points for that.
No.
Yes,
Their final tally was like 370 points or something like that.
Oh, that's because they got negative points taken from them. That's how they determine the House Cup. How much do you think they get for a win?
No, that doesn't make any sense because if someone answers something good in class or whatever the case is, you get like 5 points and Harry's out there catches a golden snitch, he gets 150.
That's how the math worked for me.
No, I don't think so. You do get points for Quidditch. Like Quidditch is tied into the House Cup.
I don't get what the whole point thing is then if that doesn't count in the real
life. They're separate points.
I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know if you're right on that.
Yeah, but I do agree. And that's my problem throughout a lot of this series is everyone turning on Harry on a dime at different times.
I do think if you didn't know him, you'd be like, look at this famous kid trying to get away with everything. So I kind of get that. However, the point thing, if you're like pissed at him for point, he got the 300 points. I'm sticking with that. And like it's only minus 50, so now he's up 250. He's plus 250 net. Like they should have a plus minus for each person, not necessarily.
Yeah, like Hermione, they're mad at her. It's like, what? She gets points in all of your classes. What are you doing? Like, be mad at Neville. He's bringing everyone down. He got minus 50, and he's probably minus in general. But yeah, I don't like how they turn on Harry at all. I don't like how they turn him throughout the series. It's a big no-no for me. But I do agree that if you don't know him, they throw this guy up on a pedestal, and what can he do? You start to get upset with that. So I get it.
What about you, Ray?
So the Quidditch stuff, I didn't love. Just the actual story of the Quidditch, like the actual matches. I just remember it being so much better. The Quidditch matches take up like a total of 4 pages in this book. Mm-hmm. It's like Harry's first time getting on the broom is more fun than any of the Quidditch matches. And from what we know about the importance of the moment he first tasted that golden snitch, later in the books, I thought it was more of a scene but it was like one sentence. It was like, oh, Harry got control of his broom, flew down, landed on the ground. It looked like he was going to puke, and he coughed up the snitch. It's like, huh?
Wait, what's the importance of tasting it?
Well, in book 7.
Oh, well, don't tell me. I don't remember at all.
Oh, it opens at the close, bro. Figure it out. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to spoil that.
Did you say snatch or did you say snitch?
Snitch. But talking about Guy Ritchie movies, Snatch is also very good. Did you have any other hates?
Yeah, this is a big one for me. I wish there was better trash talking to Malfoy.
Yeah.
Your whole family was riding Voldemort's dick. Your fucking whole family is sucking Voldemort's dick for 5 years. Don't come in here talking your shit about how great your family is. They're fucking huck-toing Voldemort for fucking the last 10 years. Your family's embarrassing. You shouldn't be showing your face. Like, don't ever talk bad about Ron. Don't ever talk bad. Like, what? I was so pissed that he didn't come back with that.
I could not agree with you more in this. It's talk about losing the ultimate fight. Your father was on the side of Voldemort, or he was quote unquote bewitched by Voldemort. So you're either evil, or you're an idiot, or you're weak.
Yeah.
So, but the bottom line is your dad was working for Voldemort, and Voldemort's gone. So like, that's embarrassing for you. You didn't win. So get out of the fight. They need to teach, let's just say my sister and her family are in town, and my nephew, his thing for a while, like the last year, has been like, if you're trash, little kids, they like to trash talk and whatnot. His thing is, I'll throw you. Yeah, they do. But they're not good at it. So his thing is, I'll throw you in the garbage.
Your nephew says this?
Yeah. It's like, okay. You mess with me, I'll throw you in the garbage.
I kind of like that.
Or like, yeah, that's his thing. But it's too far. Like, that's all he's got. So I'm like, hey, you got to.
Yeah, like we say rubbish, trash. You gotta
expand on your trash talking.
Keep the garbage the same thing, but just change the verbiage, you're saying?
No, expand on the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think they need to do the same thing with as it pertains to anything involving. Like, Malfoy's so easy too. He's a little weasel fuck.
Yeah.
Just he stands behind Crabbe and Goyle, or just in the Forbidden Forest, he was panicking. Just stick on that for him for the next year. I'm going to jump into listener mail. We do have listener mail this week.
You've got mail.
It's from Caroline in Cape Cod. It says, "Hi, Dylan and Keith!" ! Longtime listener, love the podcast. I have a few Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone questions for you both. A few? Wow, here we go. Start with one. Which character do you most relate to and why? Not necessarily your favorite character.
I'd say probably Ron. Pale, gingerish, big family. Not very good at things, but have my very own Harry Potter carrying me, aka D-Man.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I'm Voldemort. I'm Voldemort. That's
okay.
Yeah. I'm probably more like Snape. I feel like he doesn't get enough love in this, and he's holding a grudge. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, nothing wrong.
I'm Italian.
Well, to a little kid, grudges. I don't know why you transfer that. Is grudges transferable to their children?
100%.
Okay, good to know.
Grudges live on forever and ever and ever. And I know this for a fact because my dad has a grudge with his older brother, and that transferred onto me. That guy won't talk to me. I don't know the guy, but he doesn't talk to me. So there you go. Italians, man, they're crazy. What's my next one? With the warnings of Dumbledore, would you be able to resist the appeal of the Mirror of Desire, the Mirror of Erised? Oh, I never thought about that. Desire and Erised. Oh. That's just yeah. That's backwards. That's backwards too. Wow, I figured the other one out, but I didn't figure that one out. That's dumb.
In this world, no. I mean, that's why I play video games all the time. That's essentially it. I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy, so I can pretend I'm seeing what fair. I want to see.
Yeah,
in that fair. World, I would have no problem. I'd be like, I'm gonna go fucking down Diagon Alley and get some crazy things I've never seen before. Yeah, so no problem in that world.
I also don't really see the appeal to the mirror. Checking it out the first time, being like, oh, cool, that's what I desire. But you're not doing it. You're just watching that stuff around you.
You watch movies, you watch TV, you play video games.
I guess that's true. But I'd probably see the same thing Harry saw, but in a positive way, like the future, and just like me, like lots of family around, all good stuff. But it's like, wait, I could live that.
Get out of here. You'd be seeing Pornhub.
You can see that on the internet.
I know. That's why you do it.
It's like, Harry's like, sorry, Hermione, I got to boot in. She's like, why did you learn that charm that lets you bring all the Kleenex with you? And the last question is, how would you handle living with the Dursleys? Would you rebel or obey? Looking forward to listening to all your HP episodes. Take care. Ah, nice. Very well done.
Well, I appreciate the email. I appreciate that a lot. But for me, I think the biggest problem would be boredom. I think after a while, you get used to like we don't like you, and you're like, we're going to ignore you. It's like, whatever. As long as you could find some sort of outlet to entertain yourself, then who cares? That's what I would go with. But I don't know. What about you? I mean, Matilda. That's why she just like went to
it's funny
she
you
just went to
said
the library
that.
every day.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I was thinking Matilda in that I probably like you can't really rebel in the sense that you can't go anywhere because you're an orphan, so you're stuck in this house. Like you don't have a choice. But it's funny you say Matilda because that's exactly what I was thinking in that I would be doing sorts of like subterfuge or stuff like that, like putting peroxide in their shampoo or, whatever, just little things that would bother them, but they wouldn't, be able to pin on me, but I would be getting my vengeance somehow.
Well, and like Matilda too, I'd probably be starting a gang in school as well. So, same thing. So that's how gangs form.
Using your powers for not good. Okay, well, thank you for the listener's mail. That was wonderful. And Cape Cod, I'm here. You sound hot. Give me a call. Do you have any lingering questions? Because I have so many.
You read ahead, kid. You keep on dropping stuff about stuff in the future that I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't. I have so many lingering questions. So, number one, how can the Dursleys afford all of Dudley's presents? So, for clarity, he has a room for the stuff he gets. So they have an extra bedroom in their house. So not only do they have to afford a house that involves an extra bedroom, which Harry doesn't live in, but it stores all of his stuff. And Vernon is selling drill parts. So do we assume that he has some like big government accounts? Are these drills like super high tech equipment? Is he the biggest salesman in all of Great Britain? It doesn't seem like he's so super bright, but just because you're not super bright doesn't mean you can be a good salesman. So is that what we're assuming? That he's just like really good at his job?
I mean, yeah, we're talking about the early 90s, the economic boom. I mean, this is pre the internet bubble. The economy was booming. It's not even a question.
So he's really smart with his investments as well.
Yeah, he probably was putting heavy money on the Bulls. I mean, he's just making all this money back. So, yeah, we're good. You've seen that meme before, right?
No.
It's like the most unrealistic thing about Harry Potter is that not one mention of the epic Bulls run in the early 90s. Like, don't you think they did casually drop like, man, Bulls are really crushing it recently, huh?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. Oh, I love it. All right, next one. Is Harry not famous enough? Shouldn't he be more famous? So because of him, Voldemort is gone and the Wizarding World is free from his yoke of tyranny. And all Harry gets in his childhood is a couple of handshakes in the street or bows on his way to school. Like, where's the wizarding paparazzi? It would be like Hitler walking into a Polish farmhouse in 1942 to kill a child and then Hitler never coming out. Plus all the mystery surrounding it, the world would be a buzz. Like, I don't understand how there's not more people finding Harry Potter and doing something about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think probably because he's been out of sight, out of mind for 11 years. So I think that's kind of playing it.
Would only entice people more.
Michael Jackson's kids, I don't know who they are.
Blanket?
Yeah. Well, at one point we knew him, and then I don't know what he's doing now, or she. I don't know if that's what.
So
what
you're equating Michael Jackson to Harry Potter's dad?
He made Thriller. Thriller. See that?
All right, that's fair. Next one. What type of schooling comes before Hogwarts? Are magical children taught basic arithmetic? And it sure doesn't seem like there's any Hogwarts prep. Like, Ron doesn't even know how sorting works, and he's had 5 siblings go through the process. So there must be like some code of silence when you go to Hogwarts. Like, you can't, what happens in Hogwarts stays in Hogwarts.
Yeah, there's a bit on Kumal, Nagiani, I think his name is. He's like the Pakistan guy. He has a bit about like how they're not teaching math. He's like, shouldn't they know that at Hogwarts? So it's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're learning.
I was totally on the same page. What are we talking about? Their monetary system makes no sense.
I think it's similar though to, hey, there's a big surprise. You're forbidden to tell people what the Sorting Hat's all that stuff about. So I think there's some whispers about it, but I don't think you're allowed to tell. It's like Santa Claus, who's still real, but you don't tell kids about that. So.
Okay, that's fair enough. I can accept it. And okay, I got 2 more. First one, how many students are there at Hogwarts? Do we know?
I want to say like 150 a class. I don't know. Maybe that's too many.
Okay, so I did a little research by reading the book, and It starts off by saying before they get sorted, it says all the first years get put into a small room before sorting. So a class has to fit in a small room. So even if they're shoulder to shoulder, it can't be a ton. And then in the Gryffindor boys' first year room, there's 5 beds. So if we're going to use that as our base point, there are 5 beds in the Gryffindor boys' first room. That means there's 5 beds in the women's room. So there's 10 kids per house, 4 houses. That's 40 kids per year. 7 years, 280 kids.
It seemed way more than during the sorting hat than that.
Yeah, than 40, right? But at the same time, it would take so long if there were more than that. Granted, the sorting
you've been to a graduation.
Yeah, exactly. There are good arguments around Harry's year and those preceding it being small, as that was the height of the war against Voldemort. So, and there's also potential that the Gryffindor types, like the parents, would likely be the ones dying during the war because, they're brave and they're fighters. So those Gryffindors who would likely have had Gryffindor kids would be casualties of war.
Okay.
Which, changes everything about the numbers we're basing this on, in that you couldn't have, maybe the Gryffindor numbers were small. So let's say there's more than 280, but there's double that, 560. At the Christmas feast, there's 100 fat roasted turkeys. And if we're talking fat, we can say conservative, it's 12-pound turkey, so that's 1,200 pounds of turkey. The general rule of thumb around Thanksgiving is a pound of turkey per person. So that's enough turkey for 1,200 people. But only a small portion of the school is around for the feast, and we're also assuming they're feeding other people and staff and whatnot. So it's very confusing, honestly. Yeah. It's very confusing how many students there are. And it really bothered me throughout the book, especially because I'm thinking about all the Wizarding kids that didn't get into Hogwarts. Because then, what are they doing? But J.K. Rowling says there's only 11 prestigious wizarding schools in the world.
Oh, well, I appreciate the research, especially you're adding in the turkey weight. That's something I would get into, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, the chicken theory. Head to buddybookclub.com for that. And then my last lingering question, which is really a conversation piece, but Harry thinks at the end that Dumbledore let him take the old college try at fighting Voldemort. Mm-hmm. He's like, Dumbledore, kind of let me do that. What are your thoughts on the matter? Do you think Dumbledore knew Harry was going to go after the Sorcerer's Stone, or whoever is trying to steal it?
We talked about it earlier, but I think it's either Dumbledore is incompetent and has no idea what's going on with the school, or he's thinking, spoilers, this dude's going to have to die at some point, so let's get it over with early. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but, one cannot die while the other lives, or whatever the case is, but then he's kind of saying, all right, I'm just going to give you to Voldemort without all the potential other protections. Yeah. But I do agree that the idea that Dumbledore is this incompetent is just not possible. And the fact that Dumbledore was away, so many of the charms and whatnot were for young wizarding children, and he knew that the other guy, or Quirrell, or whoever it was, he knew that Harry would flush out whoever this situation was.
All you really needed was the mirror, because he wasn't getting by the mirror.
That's exactly. The end, he's not getting by the mirror. And Dumbledore has been known in the future to, kind of hang Harry out as bait to some degree. Mm-hmm. So I think Dumbledore knows. He knew, when him and Harry sit down, he knows the relationship between him and Malfoy. He knows the relationship between him and the rest of the people. He knows what Neville's about. So Dumbledore knows what's going on. I think that he did allow this to happen. Whether it was his best decision, I'm not sure. But he's not incompetent.
All right. Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right. So give me your fun facts.
Dumbledore has a deeper meaning. It actually is an Old English word for bumblebee. Rowling has said that she chose the name because she always thought of Dumbledore humming to himself. I like that. A little bumblebee.
Yeah. I appreciate you going with the bumblebee sound, too. That was nice.
The original names for the characters were Hermione Puckle, Draco Spinks, which I don't hate, Neville Puff. Neville Puff. Longbottom, I don't know what's worse, Longbottom or Puff.
Yeah, but, especially in the British slang for poof.
Oh, maybe that's what it is, yeah.
I don't think so. Well, we know now a lot more about J.K. Rowling than we did before, so it's potential. No, we're not.
And then I had a meme that I had a couple memes, but this one I think is the best one. Slytherin, looks like we're going to win the House Cup, smiley face. Dumbledore, would be a real shame if I gave 8 billion points to Gryffindor for Harry making his bed. Slytherin, but a real shame. I just like that.
That one got you.
Yeah, I like that one.
All right. I like the Bulls one better, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
That was my fun facts. Yeah.
yeah, those are good shares. Those are good shares. I hope you keep those up for the future ones because I'd like to know more. All right. Instead of doing what would you recommend the book as we normally do, because we both love Harry Potter, anything negative that we have said throughout this is lies, myths, and fallacies. We love to critique it, but at the end of the day, we fucking love Harry Potter.
It's perfect.
Instead of recommending the book, let's award the House Cup. So my cup is awarded to that sly devil, Minerva McGonagall. Why, you may ask? It's for making piles of galleons betting on Gryffindor to win the House Cup. So early on, it says McGonagall couldn't look at Snape because Slytherin winning the Quidditch Cup the year before. Likely because she had lost a lot of money betting on Gryffindor last year and was trying to dodge Snape. I'm sure the VIG alone on that bet was big enough that she couldn't crawl out of it. So once she finds out that Harry's the best flyer in the last 100 years, she knows it's time to risk it all. Knowing how tightly the Quidditch Cup is tied to the House Cup, she makes an enormous bet, or potentially a series of bets, on the wizarding equivalent, like FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever, through intermediaries, of course, because she can't do it herself, that Gryffindor is going to win the House Cup, which, considering that Slytherin had won the cup for the last 6 years, it's definitely a plus money bet. You know, I'm going to say like 4.5 to 1. So she takes her last bit of savings.
Yeah.
And after she makes this bet, she takes her last bit of savings and buys Harry that Nimbus 2000 to kind of secure that situation. Mm-hmm. Things turn out well for her. Hermione's racking up scholastic points for Gryffindor with small increments, which she wasn't really prepared for, so she loves that. And then Gryffindor's crushing the Quidditch matches. But here's where her real genius comes in. She's got a lot of risk in the marketplace with all of her money on Gryffindor, so she needs to hedge. Now, Slytherin is an underdog now, so she goes back to the marketplace, puts some money on Slytherin at probably like 7 to 1 odds. We're talking like after Harry beat, I think it was like Hufflepuff in that game. So, you know, the odds are really stacked for Gryffindor. So she puts money on Slytherin. Then when she catches Harry and Ron out of bed, she's like, oh, this is great. Or Hermione and Neville. She docks 50 points from all of them. They're like, this is absurd. No one's ever done this before. But yeah, because she's already put that money on Slytherin to hedge. Yeah. So, and she takes a little from Malfoy. You know, she takes the same amount from Malfoy, not to, put a cent on her. But she's basically securing herself a big payday. I'm not sure that she was expecting Dumbledore to save the day for Gryffindor at the end, but she knew that he's a wily bugger and, has she's already diversified her risk.
Right.
So in case that, Dumbledore decides to pull off any shenanigans. So really it was the best and potentially perfect bet progression that she could have made. And for that, she deserves my House Cup.
That's just really well done. I don't have anything to add. I think we might have lost half the listeners other than those gambling addicts like ourselves, the last part there, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's true. So, do what you want with that.
I'll award the House Cup to Hagrid.
Okay.
I already mentioned him earlier. Just fails upward at everything he does. Gets kicked out of Hogwarts, lands a job. He's kind of incompetent, basically a drunkard. Rides a sweet Harley, just hangs out with kids all day, little children. He's doing everything right. I mean, what? So I'm giving it to him.
He's a man of simple pleasures, and he lives life to the fullest. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
He's got dolphins for feet. Keith, God, it was a longie, but it was a goodie. It was a goodie. I'm glad we get to talk about Harry Potter, and there's so much more to come. This book's one of the shortest ones, so we got a lot more stuff coming. What do we got next?
We got the movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, coming up next, and then the second installment.
Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets next, after that.
I'm going to probably watch the movie this weekend, maybe a Sunday vig. So we'll do that next week. And happy July 4th to everyone. If you're in Great Britain, then sorry, but we won. And yeah, Keith, I'll catch you for the movie. That was fun.
Indeed. Alrighty.
All right. Bye now.
Bye now.